the one thing that I like to talk to parents about is expectations. Expectations set everything in this game, whether it's expectations for a round of golf, whether it's expectations for the way that you want your kid to behave, but also for the result of every single golf shot, right? So much of us watch the highlights from the PGA Tour and we see guys draining putts from 40 feet. We see guys hitting 350-yard drives. We see guys stiffing it to 2 feet with a wedge. And I think so much about what I teach from the decision-making process and course management in particular sets a realistic level of expectations for golfers.
Welcome to The Golf Parent, where you get access to the best minds in junior golf. I'm your host, Ryan Addams, and my guest today is Will Kelly, Scotland's leading mental golf coach. Now, Will doesn't touch your swing. What he focuses on is something that's arguably, well, it matters even more. What's happening between your ears, from the first tee to the final putt. His whole philosophy is built around one simple idea: stop fighting your game and start playing in control. And in this conversation, we get into why so many junior golfers have the mechanics but not the scores, and what the best players in the world are doing differently. I think every golf parent in this community is going to take something valuable away from this one. But first, I want to introduce you to literally the coolest head covers in the game right now, made by Craftsman Golf. If you're looking for a way to help your junior express their personality on the course, or honestly yourself, this is it. Craftsman makes realistic plush head covers in just about every animal that you can think of. I mean, Rory's got his dog and Tiger's got the tiger. So whatever your animal, your pet is, Craftsman has it. Just go to craftsmangolf.com and get 15% off. Just use the promo code GOLFPARENT and you'll get 15% off. And literally look at the quality here. This is the Golden Retriever. It's weighted ears, beautiful actual hair, and even subtle little touches like the lips, the folded gums are sewn into here as well. It doesn't get any more realistic, doesn't get any more cool. Check them out, craftsmangolf.com, and get 15% off with the Golf Parent. And now, here's my conversation with Will Kelly. It is not every day that I have Scotland's #1 golf performance coach on the Golf Parent podcast. Will Kelly, welcome. Welcome.
Hey Ryan, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing wonderful now. I'm doing great. It's we were talking off air that you are my favorite type of expert to talk to because I am obsessed with trying to level up on the mental side of the game. That's something that I feel like we actually have some sort of control over. And you're an expert in it. I mean, you not only understand, course performance and understanding the strategy on how to do the math and how to do, get your way around the course, but you also understand how to think golf. So I'm excited for this conversation because I know when talking to you before that there's going to be some tidbits here that we're going to be sharing with parents.
And I'm excited to share, I think, a little bit more on so much of golf is a little bit behind the scenes, and I want to just open that as much as possible to players who often trip themselves up, and let's help them get out of their own way. That's ultimately what I'm here for.
Well, you got this great line where it's like, if you've ever felt like you should have shot lower in a round, then you're in the right place. Right place, i.e. speaking to you. So let's start here. What is the difference? So I learned recently, and it's been reinforced a couple of times. I understand now the difference between a golf teacher and a golf coach. A golf teacher is teaching you. A golf coach is coaching you with more than just like giving you the actual textbook definitions of swing mechanics or whatever it might be. A coach is a little bit more holistic. What do you do though? Because it's a little bit of a hybrid, or it's a little bit different. Let's maybe start there.
Yeah, I really keep it pretty holistic with my coaching. I like to see the golfer or the athlete as a human being first. At the end of the day, that's what we all are. And if you then specialize in a particular sport, we've got to help you look after yourself as much as you and your performance, right? If you're a human being that's in a good place off the golf course, then you're going to be a better human being on the golf course. Literally the backbone of what I do. So when we then dive into a little bit more of the performance related things and, ultimately helping golfers kind of shed some light on perhaps what they've been up against or what they've been struggling with, it really opens the door to more consistency, improved floor of performance as much as improved ceiling of the performance, which we'll dive into, no doubt. There's so many guys want to search for consistency and things like that, and it's understanding how they can help themselves to create that consistency without it just looking like swing coaching. I always really hit home that if you want to improve your scoring, then you need more than just a swing system. You need much more of a holistic performance system. And whether that be improving your course management, whether it be improving your mental state and influencing your physical performance. All kind of ties together with the way that I coach.
Okay, so let's dissect some of those elements. So just to be clear, I mean, you understand the technical aspect of the golf swing, but that's not normally why somebody's calling you. They're not calling you to kind of tweak where the hand should be in the backswing or that's usually somebody else. They're bringing you in because they feel like there's more that they're looking to get out of their game, and they've either got some sort of mental hurdle, some sort of limiting belief, something like that they're looking to kind of, I guess, shed some awareness on and kind of figure that out. Am I understanding that correct?
Yeah, for sure. So I always work alongside PGA teaching instructors. I'm not a golf swing coach in the slightest. I know about the swing. I know certain fundamentals, of course, and I get teaching myself for my own performance. But what I do predominantly is I then help golfers take those swing-focused changes or improvements, and I help them to show up when it really matters most. So what a lot of players don't understand is enough about how their mental state impacts their physical state. And if your physical state is being impacted by the mental, then your physical golf swing is coming under pressure, it's becoming unstuck. And I think a lot of us bang our heads against the wall trying to make all of these swing changes and improvements, particularly at this part of the year and the winter here in the UK. And then we hope that come the start of the season in spring, summer, those physical swing changes will have led to an improved score, or will have stuck well enough that when I've then got a scorecard in my hand and, I'm walking down the 18th, that's going to be enough. But there's so much more under the surface that I want to help golfers understand a little bit more about, so that it's a combined effort and you're not throwing all the hours you can hitting balls in the range and working with your swing instructor to then it become unstuck when you get on the first tee of that first tournament and start of the season.
So would you suggest that in the winter that we should be spending more time meditating, maybe taking anger management classes, maybe couples therapy with our golf clubs, just to kind of tackle that aspect of the game instead of just banging balls against a simulator or a driving range?
For sure. There is so much time and space for swing instruction, particularly at the early start of the game. And obviously, the more and more that you get into your golf, I don't know what sort of level of golfers we have listening, but certainly from the start, fundamentals are vital, and continuing to work on those fundamentals are massive. But I do think that the higher up that you get in this sport and the earlier you can start blending the best of swing coaching as well as your holistic performance coaching, whether it be from training your brain to understanding more course management, to be working on your pre-shot routines, your post-shot routines, everything that happened between golf shots. And I'm sure we'll talk more about the system and the performance process that I coach to players and help them understand more of. There is just so much more that goes into a good golf shot than just the golf swing. And so the sooner we can pick that up and adopt that, the better, because not only does it help you with your performance, but it helps you post-shot and understand more about why a shot happened the way it happened and why a round went the way it did, as opposed to just what happened to my swing today.
Okay, so I mean, the audience that's listening right now, I mean, it's mainly golf parents, and golf parents have kids at varying development levels and age levels. So let's get into something a little bit more tactical here when it comes to the actual, the mental coaching or some of the mental tips and tricks for kids. Let's maybe split them into two age groups or developmental groups that make sense for you. So maybe very, very early beginners, maybe 5 to 10 or so, 10 to 15, and then 15 to 15 plus. If you were to have a group of beginner golfers, say 5 to 10 years old, what would be maybe a handful, 1 or 2 kind of mental tips or tricks that you would really want to reinforce in them? And then let's just carry that through each one of the 3 different age groups.
I just want to take a moment. I want to share something that I'm incredibly proud of. I've just finished my very first ever kids book. It took me 4 years. It's called The Adventures of Chase and Bell and the Magic Golf Ball. Why did I write this? Because I kept reading my son stories, really popular New York Times best-selling books, and I had no idea what the theme is. What am I sharing with him? What is he taking away from this? Their brains are so precious from 0 to 8, and what we're imprinting in their minds and their psyches are going to last for a lifetime. So I went out and I basically wrote something that I want to teach my own son. I've read it to him over 100 times. He can read it to me verbatim back to me. And the entire theme is magic flows where your focus goes. And where your focus goes, the golf ball goes. But it's not just about golf, it's about life. Because when you start focusing on the things that you don't want to happen, like hitting the ball offline, or there's a big pond in front of you and you're scared that you're going to hit it into the pond, well, again, guess what happens? magic flows where your focus goes. And so it's teaching him over and over again the power of focus and intention, and that he really is in control. Most important part, not only on the golf course, but in life, is what we're focusing on, our minds, and what we're pulling into our realities that way. So incredibly proud of it. The Adventures of Chase and Bella, it's a premium picture book, hardcover, spared no expense. It's the best. I read it to my own child. I love it. I'm very proud of it. It's available on Amazon.com. It's a great way to support the show so we can keep bringing these amazing guests and hopefully this insightful information and wisdom to you guys. And yeah, it's a wonderful way to support the show. So please go out, Amazon.com, go grab your copy. It's a great gift. And now, back to the episode.
Yeah, for sure. I think when you're that young, when you're kind of 5'10", really starting out, as I said before, it's super important to get your fundamentals sorted. And that's really where I would say, at 5 to 10 years old, you're probably bordering on, let's really, really knuckle down on the simple focuses at each department of your game, from putting, chipping, all the way through to full tee shots, learning more about everything that your swing instructors teach. I think because the brain is evolving at such an early stage and continuing to do so, it's probably a little early for you to start diving into all of the things that we teach. I say my youngest clients are about 11 years old. Okay, and that's super early. 11 years old is super early to be diving into mental performance coaching. So realistically, if you're a beginner golfer, there are fundamentals that we want to knuckle down on first. But having said that, there is so much to understand from the reason why golf shots have happened the way they have. And I think so many young kids in particular, particularly when they start out, they see the guys that are at the best kind of levels of the game and they instantly are trying to replicate that. So whether it's grabbing your 60-degree wedge and trying to hit those little tight spinners, or wanting to hit the golf ball as hard as they possibly can, I think that realistically from a young age, a lot of golf coaches can help golfers, either the guys that are beginning to learn some of the fundamentals from 30, 40 when they've just picked up the game, or very young junior golfers. Help them to understand why things have happened the way they have, not just teach them this is the way you should do it, but if a shot goes a particular way, learning more about the why behind it. I think it's so important for you to share things in a way that golfers can then understand more when they're then doing it by themselves going forward, either on the golf course or around the green or on the driving range or whatever, so that you don't just get into the habit of hitting balls, as we said at the start, but learning more about why something's happened the way it's happened.
So you're ingraining the proper technique, the fundamentals early into your psyche, so that you can build on that later on.
For sure. Okay. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of swing instructors would agree with me here that you can teach someone how to do something, but until they learn it for themselves and can then reiterate it back to you, or when they're practicing by themselves, learn about why something happened, they're going to accelerate their development much quicker that way, I think, rather than just this is the way you should do it.
Is there a way that you would speak to a younger child or beginner golfer to kind of ingrain the same way that you would be ingraining those fundamental kind of actual technical swing mechanics into them? Is there a way to think about maybe practice or think about getting better that would be a healthy foundation for them to grow through as they get older?
Yeah, for sure. The way that I always run clinics or on-course performance sessions with my younger kids is a tip that I picked up from Rick Sessinghouse with Flow Code. Get a kid to have 3 golf balls, hit the shot first the way that they want to hit it, right? And that's the way that they would decide to play it on the golf course. Then ask them why they hit it the way they did, and ask them if they could change anything, what would they change? And that way you're starting to help them think either from a swing perspective what happened, or from an outcome perspective what happened, and get them to hit the shot again, see if anything changed, see if they were happy with the improvement. And then the third shot, the coach steps in and discusses the way that they would have coached it. So that it's much less of a, this is what you did wrong, but it's much more of a, if you could do that again, what would you do differently? And that really helps, as we'll kind of discuss from a post-shot perspective, understanding more about if a shot has come off the way that it has, how can I learn from it rather than just react to it and either get frustrated in future or immediately just grab another ball and hit the same ball again. Because you see so many juniors hitting ball, and when they happen to hit one really well, they're then happy with it. But if you only get one chance on the golf course, how can you use the post-shot perspective to learn more about it and improve the way you'd go about it next time you're in that situation? Because then you're learning as opposed to just hitting shots.
And then I'm assuming part of the post-shot routine is kind of maybe just understanding from a detached or non-emotional place to be like, oh, like I'm not going to get upset at the outcome per se. I'm going to more put my energy in trying to figure out what went into that and then somehow let it go so that I can move on to the next shot. Is that a
100%.
fair assessment?
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever I'm out on the course, or I teach this in my online community as well, we're so quick to judge ourselves when it comes to the outcome of a golf shot. And I think, so many of us expect stuff immediately these days with, interaction being at your fingertips
Instant
with your phones
gratification
and
everywhere.
instant.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And we get the same kind of result of that with golf and golf shots in particular. And, I know that junior brains and arguably young adults' brains are still continuing to develop for a considerable length of time. And we get so in our own head about that instant gratification of, if a shot didn't go to plan, it's immediately my golf swing and the swing's fault. But I think that learning more about, from a post-shot perspective, what happened in the shot. Was the decision good? Was I committed to it? Did I execute it the way I wanted to? Learning so much more about that, and then understanding from a post-shot perspective how to manage that immediate reaction is vital, because then you start to create much more of a growth mindset for every single shot. And so you're then less likely to repeat it. And if you're less likely to repeat it, you're going to get frustrated much less as well. But every shot becomes a huge learning. And it's almost like every shot becomes a data point, right? Oh, that happened the way that happened. I'm learning from it as opposed to instantly trying to forget about it. Because the whole hit a shot and move on makes sense, and I get it. But how can we learn something before we then try to move on from it, rather than just react, get frustrated, and try your best to move on from it? So for me, I like to teach people about that post-shot routine as much as possible. And
I'd like to dissect that a little bit more, because I mean, it's not something that's taught very often, but I'm just going to, I guess, reinforce something that you said earlier, which is why, when you're starting out with any sport or golf specifically, why it's so important to have the fundamentals that understand that. Because now, as you get a little bit better, that post-mortem of the shot, you actually have some. What I'm trying to say is that I don't necessarily, I'm a 16 handicap weekend warrior, just hacker out there, right? I love golf. Don't get me, I haven't golfed in 3.5 months. I just don't get a chance to golf as much as I want to. But when I'm going after it and I'm dissecting my shot, I don't necessarily know what the hell I did wrong. I don't know. I'm just I'm like, okay, that sucked. I mean, maybe I did my shoulder, or maybe I came over. I have no idea. So I guess that was almost reinforcing what you're saying, which is have a good idea of what's going on with a golf swing, so that after, you're not just blindly fishing around to try and figure out what went wrong. And then probably the worst thing that you could do is trying to fix it mid-round, giving yourself a driving range lesson to try and, but without having that actual gnosis or that knowledge of what actually you should be doing. Is that fair?
It's totally fair. That's why it comes in such harmony, right? If you get a golfer working on their golf swing, that's good, but let's educate them on why things are happening the way they're happening there, rather than the way it should be. Let's make it understandable about, okay, that shot happened the way it happened. Why do you think that happened? Rather than, by the way, you did this wrong. So if I was encouraging swing coaches to help golfers with what I try to teach, it would be, help them understand the why behind it, and understand less so about the immediate fix, but more so about, why did that shot go the way that it did? Because there's so much more to a shot than the swing. So for example, I've had this kind of 8, 9 handicappers still coming to me trying to understand why the golf ball went left to right. And maybe it's not because they left the club face open, but when you're on the golf course, there's so much more that goes into a shot. Understanding more about how your wind impacts the shot, understanding more about the lie and how it comes out from the turf, understanding everything that leads to the whole kind of point of view of the shot, rather than just the actual golf swing itself. And I think it's important for us to have a really open mind when it comes to that post-shot experience, so that you don't start immediately blaming your golf swing when it could have been one of the other few things that might be on that checklist.
That makes sense. Okay, so then what goes into a perfect post? I mean, there's pre-shot routine, and that kind of gets all the glory, all the attention, all the headlines. But what goes into a good post-shot routine? What would you suggest juniors do? And what, as parents, can we teach our kids to do so that it's constructive and it's actually going to help them become better?
Huge emphasis on 5 key points at every stage of my performance cycle. Maybe before we dive into that, let's just give a real quick like overview of what the performance cycle even is, right? It's kind of the anatomy of a golf shot, because the way I explain it to people is, if you forget about the emotions and everything that happens in golf, if I just got you to describe, imagine an alien had crash landed on planet Earth, how would you describe golf in its most simple form of all? And the way I would say it is, you find ball, you hit ball, you find ball, you hit ball, you find ball, you hit ball. And that's kind of as simple as it gets. Yes, the occasional one goes in the hole, but when we really kind of scrape it back to its ultimate baseline, yes, we then dive into swing mechanics. Yes, we then dive into the mental game, but find ball, hit ball, find ball, hit ball. And then you start to understand more that golf happens in this cycle. And the more that I can help every single golfer on the planet learn about this cycle, the better you're going to get with pre-shot routine, post-shot routine, and everything that happens in between golf shots. There's a research study. It takes on average 1.6 seconds to swing the golf club and to hit the golf shot. But if you then times that by the number of shots that you hit on the round of golf, let's say it's a really good round of golf and it's in the 70s, that's only a matter of minutes. Yet we're then out on that golf course for, on average, about 4 hours, maybe even longer if it's a tournament. And you got to be able to learn all about the different stages of this cycle to be able to learn what's truly in your control at any moment in time. And for me, control is one of the biggest words you can learn about in golf, because you try to control what's not in your control at that point, you get yourself frustrated. You end up in your own head. You try to control something that's out of your control, you feel so much further from what is in your control at any moment in time. So if I give you the real snapshot of what this performance cycle looks like, it's, it doesn't matter whether you're hitting a 6-foot putt, whether you're hitting a 300-yard tee shot, whether it's a little chip from around the green, you go through the cycle every single time. You get to the golf ball, you reset. So many people don't reset. They just go straight into the next shot. We make a decision, whether it's the read of the 6-foot putt, whether it's the distance I'm looking to hit a shot, whether it's what the wind is doing. And then you try to commit to that decision. That's when we start to dive into our pre-shot routines and really quietening the mind and learning to commit to what I have already intended to do. From there, you execute the golf shot, and that's where everyone assumes that 90% of golf takes place, because that's what moves the golf ball from A to B. That's what your golf swing does. And a lot of the focus on education is in that department. But then if we move on from the golf swing and the result of a golf shot, you need a post-shot routine to manage the response that you have. And so many golfers react rather than reflect. And they get super in their head about what's just happened, as opposed to, I'm not in control of that anymore. So what can I actually do right now that helps me to be mindful, calm, move on effectively? Because I can't control that golf shot anymore. The only thing I can do about it is learn from it. And so much of us spend time then not accepting the golf shot and transitioning really poorly. And when we transition between golf shots, the thing that takes the most amount of time, we end up in our own head. We ruminate down the fairway. For a lot of golfers, it's throw a golf club or kick yourself or hit the bottom of your shoe with your wedge or whatever it is, right? And it doesn't matter whether it's the 2-second transition from moving from that 6-foot putt to just around the other side of the hole to tap it in. It doesn't matter whether it's then moving on from that tap into the next tee box. It doesn't matter whether it's from that tee box to 300 yards down the fairway because you've absolutely smashed the next tee shot. Whatever it is, every shot goes through this cycle where you finish your transition and you get back to the reset. And we go again, and we go again. Now,
let me see if I want to see if I've got it though.
For sure.
So reset, and then we make a decision, then we commit to that decision, then we execute the decision, and then we respond to the outcome. Please tell me you have an acronym for that that's going to make it easier for me to remember.
I'll work on one.
Okay, we need an acronym. All right, one more time. So get to the golf shot, reset. Resetting, breathing, I'm assuming. Finding some way to ground yourself or be present in this moment. Would that be? For sure.
Okay. For sure.
Any other tips on how to reset?
Yeah, we'll dive into that.
Beautiful.
The way I look at this reset is like, you imagine you're in your old school gym class and your PE teacher has the old school stopwatch. You have two options. You can either reset the stopwatch or you can hit stop start and the time will keep ticking along and clocking up and up and up. If you have that little old stopwatch in the back of your head, every time you plan to make a new decision, you want to hit reset on every single shot because the last shot you hit means nothing to you anymore. There's no benefit from it. So many players just hit stop start and the time ticks up and up and up and up and up. And the more that ticks up and up, the more the emotional experience gets higher, the more the frustration builds, the more that the moment takes over and what's about to happen gets more and more important, or the front nine that you played and you're on the turn, and that starts to build and build and build. And so the mental reset is all about, how can I ground myself in what's important now? How can I reset my physical system, my nervous system, so that I'm kind of back down to ground level, back down to level zero, rather than feeling like I'm way up here. And this regardless of whether it's the first tee shot of the day, whether it's the first putt on that first green that often gets the adrenaline pumping, regardless of whether it's a shot that really, really matters on 17 or whatever it is. Hitting the reset between every shot so that it's like a new moment all of a sudden, and you've just started a new cycle. Because so many of us allow what's been and gone to influence more, and what's about to happen to influence more, but really grounding ourselves in the present moment is vital. Now, a couple of little tips. Tip number one that I love to kind of emphasize to people: what direction do we all play golf in? It's always forwards. It's always what's next, what's next, what's next, what's next. And I like to get people to just pause momentarily, throw the bag down. And let's say you've walked from A to B, from the green up to the next tee box. Before you start to make your decision, there's nothing more grounding than just having a little look back to where you've just walked from and just go, right, and just hit the reset for a moment, because everything is always next, 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 next. If you can get a player that's hit a tee shot 250, 300 yards down the fairway to just plonk their bag down for a moment and just kind of take a 180 turn and just look back to where they came from, it's just that subtle reminder of what the stress-free approach was to get there. And we talk a lot in our principles about the stress-free nature that golfers can choose to incorporate into their decisions and into their performance, rather than feeling like everything needs to be absolutely perfect. And the more that we can then get that stress-free mentality going, that choosing the easier option mentality a lot of the time, it reminds you that it is plot from A to B, get yourself around the golf course in the most stress-free nature that you can, so that you don't ask yourself to have the perfect golf swing for every single golf shot. You don't ask yourself to have perfect fundamentals. It can, you've got an element of, you're not a robot. You're a human being, and it's about making each one of these cycles as effective as we can, but without it being as stressful as it can often be for a golfer. So taking that little look back can be a real little stress reliever for people. Just take a little second just to look back, incorporate some breath work, maybe tune into your surroundings and remind yourself of where you are, how grateful you can be for the opportunity to be there, and just like properly ground yourself in the moment for a second before you then dive in, grab your rangefinder, start making the next decision. Because so much is influenced from what's just been and gone.
I love it too, because it's a pattern interrupt as well, because it's your mind is so, it's always fixated on the next thing, that if you can interrupt that pattern, and if you can kind of, and I'm sure like it has some sort of rooting in science, maybe you can educate me here, but your eyes are obviously affecting the neurological aspect of your brain. So by you kind of flipping around and looking backward, it might do something with a certain aspect of your brain to kind of help reset it. Is there science behind this, or have you just found it to be very effective?
For me, it's something I just started incorporating into my own performance, right? Because so much of us, and we should probably touch on this, your mental state is always super active when you're playing golf. And what I mean by that is your brain activity. Your brain waves are always like super, super fast whenever you're constantly feeling like you're being controlled by your performance. And a lot of what I talk about in the book and in my performance coaching is how to allow your brain just that little moment to kind of settle. And, it's discussed a lot within Decade of just that meditative state you can get into at different moments and different opportunities, so that you're not constantly on that high. And the more that golfers can learn about their mental state and understanding that if you play golf on that peak mental state all the time, and for the 4 hours you're out there, you're trying to control everything, you're going to burn out pretty quick, and your decision making is going to be impacted. Your frustration levels are going to be impacted. You're likely to feel that snowball effect much more. And so you asked about the science behind it. Of course, if you play golf with that kind of elevated mental state the whole time, and your brain activity is constantly firing, you're going to run out of mental energy super quick. And that's why a lot of golfers, we talk all about physical energy, and I refer to it as that physical mental battery that you've got when you play golf. If your mental battery is getting chunks taken out of it because of the reactions you have to golf shots, because of the frustration that you've experienced. Even positive things like how hard is it to overcome a hole in one and to settle yourself back down? Like for those that have been fortunate to have a hole in one, and then you try and collect yourself for the next shot, your whole mental, physical state is just super high. So ultimately it's about helping a golfer to learn about those little moments that you have to hit the reset button and just bring it all back down to ground level for a moment before you jump into the next thing.
I love that. Okay, so we're resetting. Tip is to look back. You said there was a couple tips. So is there something we've missed, or is that the number one?
Let's touch on breathwork for a moment, because breathwork is the key tool that every golfer can learn about. Breathwork and understanding more about it from a meditation side of things, from how you can incorporate breathing into your performance, has just become an absolute game changer. Not only because of the way that it helps people physically with nerves and physically managing the way they feel, but your brain activity is directly linked to your breath work. And the more that you can understand about mindful exhales and slow exhales, and understanding the way that you've probably been taught to breathe when nervous or when excited is probably counterintuitive.
Or not taught. I mean, who teaches their kids how to breathe?
Right? Not taught. Yeah, you're totally right. So a lot of the golfers I work with, the first things that we'll talk about is breath work, because it's immediately like you've got a volume control button on your brain, and your brain is something that often carries you away from what's in control and the good aspects of your performance. So being able to think about your brain activity with a volume control is really helpful, and it's a good little visual. Imagine a lot of players try to just hit mute straight away on their brain activity, and they hope that they can kind of collect themselves quickly to hit a good shot. But your brain doesn't work with that mute on-off functionality. You've got to be able to hit the dimmer switch and gradually turn it back down. And your brain's always trying to get more active. If you think about everything in life, your brain is always trying to be more active so that it can protect you, right? Your brain's always trying to save you from what might damage you next, or what might hurt you in a social situation or physically, whatever it is. So you're always on high alert. And if we can learn how to hit the volume control and hit the dimmer switch, you're going to play better golf, because you can hit that reset more effectively. Now, hitting the dimmer switch is a really simple thing when you grasp the concept of slow exhales mean slower brain activity. So why don't we try a little kind of exercise whilst we're on here, and the listeners can dive into, because whilst we teach things like meditations, which maybe last 5-10 minutes, even 1 or 2 breaths can be super, super beneficial and functional when you're on the golf course. So as we've touched on, your performance cycle has little opportunities for you to incorporate this. So pre-shot routine, absolutely. Post-shot routine, absolutely. As you move between golf shots, 100%. But definitely when you get back to the top of your reset, before you go flying into the next decision, getting control of your mental state. And we can do that by incorporating a little tip that I like to kind of visualize as imagining that you have a little straw in your mouth, okay? And using a straw helps you to manage the exhale that you have. Because if any junior out there has heard from a coach or from a parent or even from themselves, just take a deep breath. They'll go like this. It's pretty common, right? That deep exhale. And that short, sharp exhale, if you think about it from a nervous system perspective, that short, sharp exhale is actually preparing your body for more. It's telling your body and stimulating your body for more and more and more. So we're going to get more activity, more tension, more respiratory rate and breathing rate. And it's kind of the polar opposite of the way that we want to be teaching that, because we want golfers to have a really mindful exhale. We want golfers to manage the speed of their exhale, because that's where you get all the golden nuggets. That's where all of the benefit from your breathing comes in. And we know that the faster your exhale, the higher your brain activity. The slower your exhale, the more calming. And you're quite literally telling your body and your brain, I'm okay right now. So let's hit that kind of dimmer switch on my mind for a moment. You think about all those benefits, it's going to help you think with more clarity. You're going to be able to make a better decision. You're going to be able to then commit to that decision more effectively, and you're going to be able to swing with more freedom, less doubts. So rather than that short, sharp exhale that you see every single kid, every single golfer doing, regardless of age, regardless of ability, let's flip it so that you take a nice mindful inhale and then breathe out of the straw. And you can repeat that once or twice.
I instantly feel calmer. There's no doubt about that. That's great.
It's so easy to just say, take a deep breath. And when you say take a deep breath, even if you're comfortable and calm at that point, you then kind of, even if it's a micro stressor on your body, you still prepare yourself for battle. But if you're already in a heightened state and you then do one of those breaths, you don't feel an awful lot of benefit from your breath, and you feel like, actually, I'm pumping myself up for more accidentally. So learning more about the fundamentals of your breath and how to breathe is so easy to begin with, because it's right there in front of you. You just got to learn the basics. So yeah, for sure we can get into meditations and training your brain and everything, but the easiest thing to do straight away is to go and learn how to breathe, to calm the body and quiet the mind first, and then think about it from our performance cycle. How can you adopt it at the different opportunities you have in that core cycle of every golf shot?
Okay, so we've reset, and you've taught us how to reset and to use breathing techniques and to do some of the other techniques that you've mentioned. And then it's to make a decision. Now, I know you're an expert in this side, but I'm going to quickly jump over this because I feel like there's so many variables that go into making a decision that over a podcast might be a little bit difficult to kind of get into. I'm interested in the commitment part, though. So we've reset, we've made a decision based on where we are in the tournament, all these different things, all these variables. How do we commit? What does that look like?
Naturally, as we've done, let's say that we've touched on decision making, and we've come to a point where the decision that you've made is now the only decision that you are committing to, right? So many golfers will rush the decision making process, and that's why I try to give real clarity when it comes to the decisions that you make. So many golfers want golf shots that, you know, even the PGA Tour players would be delighted with, stiffing it to 3 feet from 100 yards. It just doesn't happen. And so much of the way that you commit to golf shots can be impacted by your expectations. And so that's why so much of the course management side comes into decision making. You know, what is a good golf shot so that you can set a good expectation around it? And I think a lot of your commitment comes from aligning to statistics, perspective, and generally grounding yourself in understanding what good is versus, you know, the highlights that you see on TV. And so much comes from that. We all watch the highlights packages. We all watch everything that the best players in the world would be absolutely delighted with. Resetting and understanding more that holding out from 8 foot is only 50%, right? So half of the guys are missing a lot of the guys are missing half of those 8 footers. That sets so much from an expectation perspective. From your commitment side of things, this varies somewhat depending on the shot that you're hitting, right? If it's a tee shot, if it's a putt, whatever it is. But everything from the commitment section of our performance cycle, let's take that 8 foot putt, for example. So much of it is at that stage about, right, okay, that is the plan, that's the decision. Now it's actually about stepping back rather than stepping in. Because so much of us step in and try to think more about mechanics in my putting stroke, making sure my face is square, making sure that I take it back a certain distance, or what happens if I miss it, right? And I think a lot of us could learn more from stepping back and knowing that you don't suddenly become a bad golfer overnight, or you don't suddenly forget how to swing the golf club. And I think at the commitment stage, people overthink rather than stepping back and allowing your putting stroke to do more of the work for you. Okay, so for me at this stage, it's all about actually learning to quiet your mind as much as possible. And so when I teach pre-shot routines, I talk more about becoming more creative. We talk more about all of the things that you can do as a golfer to be more visual, to be more feel, as opposed to technique and mechanics. I teach so much more about how you can manage your physical state by managing that mental state we've talked about, so that it impacts things like your grip pressure, the tension you have in your grip, rather than white knuckling the golf club so that you swing with a bit less tension and a bit more freedom. And I think it's very easy for us to go and start thinking really mechanically on the putting green if you've missed a couple of putts previously, or if you've hit a couple of slices off the tee and suddenly you're trying to defend against hitting your slice for the day. And again, that goes back to, let's think about teaching the reasons why behind golf shots, but also thinking more about how you can commit your very, very best. And it comes from quietening your mind so that you remove doubt, you remove uncertainty, but also so that you then start to actually believe in what you see. So much of a pre-shot routines comes into visualizing the shot, comes into having really, really, really small targets. So let's take your tee shots, for example. You're no longer trying to hit the fairway. You're trying to hit something that is just so small that your focus is increased, your attention is increased, and your chances of missing it, if you're going to miss it, are smaller because your target was just so minuscule in the first place. So let's take a tee shot, for example. If I'm teaching a pre-shot routine, I'll get someone to tell me what their plan is. And if their plan is to simply hit the fairway with a little fade, I'll get them starting much more about, okay, if your start line is up the left side and just going to bleed back to the right, I want you to pick something that challenges your attention so much that's based on that start line that you're no longer thinking about what the fairway is and the result of the golf shot. So you're no longer thinking about hitting it over that bunker up the left-hand side. You're now thinking about hitting it on the red roof of that farmyard that's actually 60 miles in the distance because it's challenging your focus so much. And it just has that little calming, quietening effect on your mind that takes your focus away from the outcome of the golf shot and challenges you so much to commitment, creating that commitment to that small target. You hear all about it with aim small, miss small all the time, but challenging your focus to the extreme on every shot then re-emphasizes this is the only shot that matters right now as well, right? And it's no longer about needing to make par on this hole. It's now my focus is super clear on that one little red roof. Standing behind the golf ball as a pre-shot routine is so undervalued, and this is one thing that I teach to everyday golfers. If you want to, you all want to play as well as you can, and we all look up to the top PGA pros. But how many of us actually incorporate the same pre-shot routine as the pros? And it's very, very small, because I see so many golfers prioritizing their practice swings and taking 2 or 3 practice swings as opposed to stepping behind the golf shot, picking very clear targets, creating feel in your pre-shot routine, quietening your mind with breathwork, visualization activities. And so whilst the amateur expects lots from their golf shot as an output, they don't then create the same consistent input. And I always say, if you're thinking about anything in life, the input has to be consistent for you to expect the output to be consistent. So I'll always get golfers to step behind the golf shot. And what that does is it immediately then knocks on to, right, okay, now that you're behind the ball, you can see straight down the line of the shot. Now you can start to very clearly pick that tiny spot in the distance. Whereas if you try to do that over your left shoulder as you're hitting practice swings, it's not as easy to commit to. You're gonna create more challenges around your alignment processes. You're going to create more challenges about what your setup looks like over the golf shot. And all of these little things create nuances that frustrate golfers more and more because they don't know about them, and then they blame their swing again. So lots of little keys that I dive into in the book, and I give 5 very, very clear takeaways from alignment, from breathwork, from visualization, small targets, etc. That's just helps golfers step into a golf shot with a bit more freedom.
I love everything that you're sharing. And we've mentioned the book now a couple of times. So let's talk about that for a second. That Mulligan feeling. Where can people get it? How do they get their hands on it? Because, I mean, I'm mad scrambling taking down notes here. I'm trying to come up with an acronym as well for you to try and remember this content. And then I'm also looking at the time and realizing we're just scratching the surface of what needs to be addressed. So obviously this is all in the book. Talk to us a little bit about the book. How do we get it? What can we expect to take from it?
The book's on Amazon. It's that Mulligan feeling. It's effectively the system that I use to help you swing with freedom first time, every time. That Mulligan feeling being everyone knows the experience of throwing another ball down and just having another crack at it.
It's so sweet. And I always say it too. People are always like, oh, that was such a good shot. I'm like, it's always easier the second time. I feel like I've said that way too many times because I'm bad off the tee. But yeah, I get it. That's a beautiful feeling. It's a feeling of freedom.
For sure. And I always said to myself a long time ago, if I could bottle up that Mulligan feeling and sell it, I'd become an instant millionaire. But the reality is that there are so many little nuances to golf that people can pick up straight away from the book to help them learn about the things that happen before a golf shot, after a golf shot, in between golf shots, to immediately help you to create that element of freedom. And so much can be said from the way that you feel over that second ball mulligan and becoming that second ball tour pro level player that helps you ultimately to resonate with, okay, why did that happen the way it happened, and how can I adopt that way of thinking next time? Things like when you step over that shot, you're much less fearful of the outcome. You're much less focused on where you could possibly potentially miss it, as opposed to total clarity on what's going to happen to this golf shot.
How do we do that though, Will? Like, it's I told you earlier about my golf basically background, which is not much. I mean, I started playing golf really at 36, and I'm 44 now. But I have way more muscle memory of what bad shots feel like, and way more muscle memory of, the ball doing not what I want to do. And oftentimes when I get up over, especially a tee shot or certain shots, I'm like, I don't have enough experience hitting that beautiful, sweet, perfect shot. So my mind often kind of wanders and I start, gravitating towards what I don't want to happen as opposed to what I do want to happen. Help me. How do I stop doing that?
If you think about most scenarios in life, we always think about what we don't want. And I think it's important for golfers to have that as a part of their decision-making process, right? Where can I absolutely not go? Because then you accept what actually good golf shots are. And I think number one priority for every amateur golfer, and I'd arguably say for every golfer in the world, is what is your stock shot shape? Because so many of us try to hit draws and fades when we don't need to be able to. And my most important thing is shot pattern, learning your shot pattern. Don't worry about your shot shape as much. Learn about your shot pattern so that you think about where the ball is plotting itself onto the golf course, okay? That way you're starting to control more about where the ball is ending up, regardless of what it looks like in the air, regardless of how perfect it needs to be, okay? So many of us try to hit a draw because the pin is on the left side of the green, or a fade because it's on the right side of the green. When we can maximize greens in regulation and still hit that little fade at the pin on the left and just hitting the center of the green. So yes, it comes back to decision making first. But so many of us have this, and you've just explained it well, that ingrained experience of the last thing I think about over the shot is what I don't want to see, what I don't want to happen. But your brain then associates everything with what we're trying to avoid. And so if you're trying to avoid that out of bounds up the right-hand side, our brain immediately tries to protect us and we swing left. What do you know about golf? It's the game of opposites. And so as soon as I'm swinging left, the ball gets more spin and it goes off to the right-hand side, swinging away from everything. And the 5 little steps that I teach in my pre-shot routine are very, very much about creating this total clarity on your visual, on exactly what you do want to achieve, exactly what you want to happen from this golf shot, paired with that quietening of the mind so that you create less doubt, less uncertainty, less the last time I hit this shot, this happened. So that ultimately you're creating more of what you do want to achieve. And it's not something that's going to happen overnight, for sure. It's something that we want to embed. That's why I work with my regular players once a month minimum on their pre-shot routines. You got to train this sort of thing. But the more that we can really get accustomed to what I want, as opposed to what I'm trying to avoid and the fear of avoiding missing right or the fear of avoiding missing left, the more that you train your brain to get very, very deliberate and disciplined with it.
No, I love that. And I've got more clarity right now. I've got clarity that I need to fully digest your book. I need to fully commit to finishing your beautiful and educational online course on School, which was just, it's awesome. I'm about halfway through it and I'm going to commit to finishing it. You've got the ears of golf parents, Will, all over the world, juniors that are listening as well. What haven't we been talking about that we should be? Like what do parents and kids need to know?
The one thing that I like to talk to parents about is expectations. Expectations set everything in this game, whether it's expectations for a round of golf, whether it's expectations for the way that you want your kid to behave, where the way that the junior wants to behave, but also for the result of every single golf shot, right? And I said it briefly there. So much of us watch the highlights from the PGA Tour or from the Ryder Cup or whatever it is that you like to watch. And we see guys draining putts from 40 feet. We see guys hitting 350-yard drives. We see guys stiffing it to 2 feet with a wedge. And I think so much about what I teach from the decision-making process and course management in particular sets a realistic level of expectations for golfers. Because I think the stat is something like 18 feet on average on the PGA Tour from 100 yards, right? It's down at like 7% from 30 feet or something. And so much of the way that a golfer goes and thinks on the golf course could be improved by thinking about the best players in the world, not from what I think I know about seeing them play, but from what the statistics actually are. Jason Day, 2014, was number one player in the world. You probably go back to when he had his TaylorMade hat on, his Adidas clothing. How many players know what his left to right dispersion pattern with his tee shots were with the driver? 74 yards wide. Left to right, 74 yards is his miss. And so if the number one player in the world is thinking about that from a shot pattern perspective and playing with it and plotting their way around effectively with it and hitting one shot shape, then other golfers can learn so much more from that than about how he bombed it 300 yards, right? It's important to learn the other side of the coin here. So that's why I tried to teach much more realistic expectation setting to players. Like, it's okay that you missed that 8-foot putt. It's okay that the 15-foot putt didn't go in. It's okay. Allowing it to become a data point so that you manage your response to it and you learn from it. Because again, going back to what we said at the very start with it's not always just your golf swing that's caused the shot to happen. If you've missed a putt left, it could be a number of a few things. You could have had a closed face, but you also might not have started the ball straight. You might not have had the right read. You might not have been totally relaxed over the putt. And so helping players to learn much more about that is so key, so that they don't start to frustrate themselves, trip themselves up further down the road, create that snowball effect after one or two holes, and ultimately learn more about this reset and how to go through every single performance cycle for every single shot that they hit, staying in control, right? Control's the one thing that we all want from our golf.
And the one thing that eludes us all. I love that. Understanding realistic expectations to free you up to actually be able to play your best by not chasing some sort of, like you said, some highlight real shot, and then for some reason getting frustrated with yourself when you're not doing what the best players in the world occasionally do. And those, like you said, the highlights that we see. Will, this has been great. We got to plug your Instagram, because that's where I first found you, was Mental Golf Coach. You are the mental golf coach. I mean, Will, I've been following you ever since the channel's basically started. Your content's fantastic. You're so generous with the tips and everything that you share. Is there anywhere else that people can find you? Anywhere else that when people are listening, they're like, listen, I need to get into your ecosystem. I really need to learn more from you. Like, where would you direct?
Yeah. Well, everything can go through Mental Golf Coach on Instagram. If you want to fire me any messages in there, absolutely. My website is mentalgolfcoach.co.uk. That has everything in there, from access to my school academy, where you've got free resources to learn more about your pre-shot routines, post-shot routines. There's a premium version of that where we do more meditations and regular sessions together, one-to-one coaching, etc. But ultimately, I think if you want to start somewhere, grab the book, because it is written like a 5-year-old could understand it. And I think that was my primary goal, right? That was the primary focus. And so much of golf is complicated, but so many golfers can benefit from learning the absolute simple things that happen in between every shot that could potentially get in your way. So if we can, rather than throw a load of new ideas at you from a swing tips and tricks perspective, how can we strip things back so that we keep trying to make things simple?
And I love that too. I'm just going to repeat it because I thought it was genius. I mean, taking a step back and resetting by looking back to where you just came from. That's a great way to reset. Once you've kind of determined or made a decision over a putt or over any shot, kind of taking a step back and allowing your mind to then get creative. I mean, there seems to be a theme there where you just kind of take a step back and reset. And that's going to be one of my big takeaways from this entire conversation. I also just want to stress to people as well that, Will, your course that you have on school, and that's SKOOL, correct? That's correct. The traditional way. Yeah, it's free. It's all up there. Like there's no paywalls there. It's like it's free. All the stuff you're talking about is free up there. So I highly encourage people to go check it out. You've got nothing to lose. Follow Will on Instagram, check out his website, but more importantly, check out his course. Like get a part of the community. I'm part of it, and I think it's just fantastic. So, Will, I think that I'm going to leave this here because I know there's going to be a round 2 and a round 3 because I have a lot more questions to ask you. I'm very grateful that you came on, and thank you for sharing so much.
Thank you, Ryan. It's been awesome. I've really enjoyed it, and hopefully golfers have taken 1 or 2 bits away and at least whet the appetite a little bit to what's also going on in their golf performance. It's not just about the physical way that you swing the golf club. There's there's a whole world out there for us to dive into and learn more about.
It's all the mental side, and who better than the mental coach? So, Will, again, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Ryan. That's awesome.
Hey, golf parents. Before you go, I just want to say thank you for being here. If you found value in this episode, please follow the podcast, leave a short review, or share it with another golf parent who would love it. Every single one helps us grow this movement to raise future champions together. Thank you. See you next week.